Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of WHF Talks Live. We are with Ms. Marcia Balisciano today. We will be discussing why RELX is so well recognized as a leader in the corporate responsibility and examine the various ways and works through which RELX supports the UN SDGs. Welcome, Marcia.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Likewise, it's a pleasure to host you here in this special episode, and we will be discussing a very important thing, which is CSR. I would like to start with my first question to you. RELX defines corporate responsibility as the way you do business by working to increase positive impact and reduce negative impact. RELX CSR also identifies itself balancing profit with social purpose. RELX provides unique contributions by assisting with universal sustainable access to information, advancing science and health, promoting the rule of law and justice, and fostering communities. Can you outline for us how your CSR program has evolved since you joined RELX in 2003?
Well, maybe the first thing for me to say is that I have a bit of a problem with CSR. So when I started, that was the terminology that I used. And at the end of the day, the terminology really doesn't matter if the essence is there and the business is really focused on maximizing, as you say, the positive impact of doing their business, minimizing the negative impact. But what I found is when I would use that, the social part of it, which is of course incredibly important, people would think, oh, I know what this is. This is philanthropy. And of course, a company understanding its role for its global communities, philanthropy is going to be an important part of that, but that's just only one strand. This is really about how the business does what it does every day and getting at the heart of that. So actually, when I was hired, it was to develop a global community program. And my then CEO said to me, that he thought my job was going to be 2 years. It'd probably take 2 years for this program to get off the ground, and then I could go off and do something else. But about a year into my job, or during that first year, there was a lot of paper shuffling around the office, or a lot of questions coming into the company that nobody quite knew the answer to, such as, how much sustainable paper did we buy? What were we doing to avoid child labor in our supply chain? How are we going to be taking account of our carbon emissions? We didn't even know what they were at that time. So I raised my hand. I said, this is all part of the same work, and I believe that it should be part of what we look at. And I'd like to take this on. And I also want to change my title to Director of Corporate Responsibility, because I thought this is really getting at the heart of what the business does. And I also think about it as looking at the company's extra financial performance and how that can affect the financial health of the business over the long term. So when I started, we just had some aspirations, and along the way, we have tried to be on par with the best in our peer group. And all accolades are fantastic. We don't necessarily seek them out, or we're also very wary of CR as PR. And if I get one critique from our board, is that we've been maybe a little bit too quiet about the good work that we do, but I always am just conscious of needing to have our own house in order, and that we may be great today at things that we're doing, but the world is constantly changing. The expectations of our stakeholders are constantly growing, and we need to always be trying to ensure that we raise our game, as it were.
That's amazing. RELX has been recognized as a leader in corporate responsibility by numerous organizations, including the UN Global Compact. I think you're also the chair of the UK arm, and Sustainalytics, among many others. You have set public corporate responsibility goals, with one of them being the expansion of RELX SDG Resource Center. Can you outline this project and its impact?
Yes, well, we're very proud of the Resource Center. So the story really goes back to the adoption of the SDGs. I had the pleasure with colleagues of being just off site of the UN at One UN Plaza on the very day that the SDGs were adopted. And in the run up to knowing that there would be a new agenda to replace the Millennium Development Goals, we thought, well, we really need to be trying to do our part, and what should that be? So we released a free piece of research called Sustainability Science in a Global Research Landscape. We wanted to see if there was going to be this new agenda, what was the state of science underpinning this focus on people, planet, and we launched this, and it was very interesting, looking at how different countries were producing research. But I was sitting in the audience listening to Richard Horton, the editor of The Lancet, which is one of Elsevier's publications, and Elsevier is a business of RELX, which helps researchers to pursue and advance science and technology. And thinking, well, this is great, but what are we going to do beyond this? And we thought, well, actually, not only within Elsevier, but within the other parts of our business. So we have Elsevier, which is focused on promoting science and health. We have a big data business, which is LexisNexis Risk Solutions. And also part of that business area, which is called for us Risk and Business Analytics. We have businesses like ICIS, which look at the commodities markets, or Cerium, which is about the global aviation industry. But their focus is really about protection of society, fighting fraud. We also have LexisNexis Legal and Professional, which is focused on advancing the rule of law and access to justice through our legal content. And then you mentioned about Reed Exhibitions. We have one of the world's largest events businesses, and like that business-to-business arm that I was mentioning, like Cerium, ICIS. Alongside that, we have Reed Exhibitions, which is looking at bringing buyers and sellers, for example, together and to improve the efficiency of markets. So we knew that we had content that was related to all 17 SDGs. If we could curate that content and put it together on a platform and make it freely available to people, then maybe they would come and be able to utilize that information. So we launched the Resource Center in 2017. It's definitely been a labor of love for those of us that have been involved. And we're very pleased with some of the features. For example, LexisNexis Legal and Professional, our colleagues there built the news tracker, so you can get up-to-the-minute news on the SDGs. And you can do that by SDG, also by geography, and increasingly by keyword. So we launched in 2017. We also have been developing original research, and actually this September, to coincide with the 5-year mark of the Sustainable Development Goals, we are going to be producing a graphic, an SDG graphic for every SDG, going back to that original inspiration for the Resource Center and looking at the state of knowledge underpinning the SDGs, which countries are producing content, and not only by income level, because perhaps it's unsurprising that the higher income countries produce the most content, but also by a different metric that we're able to develop called the Relative Activity Index metric. So what is the share of output for that SDG? And it totally flips what you would expect, because you get lower income countries, middle income countries that are producing the most content as a share of all the research that they produce. And something I'm really passionate about as well, looking at these graphics, is what is the share of output by international collaboration, and particularly what is the output for low-income countries, because those are the countries that are on the forefront of many of the challenges that the SDGs relate to. That being said, the SDGs, why I think they're so powerful, is that it's an agenda for all countries. So for us in the global north as well as in the global south.
Fantastic. You gave us an overview about RELX, and you mentioned that you also have an arm in data analytics. In one of our previous webinars, we discussed space technology. We looked at how satellite data can be used in a wide variety of humanitarian contexts, from predicting flooding to assisting governments with land management. Can you explain for us the main ways in which RELX has been supporting the UN SDGs through your use of data?
Yes, well, I want to give you a few examples. So the work that I just described about these SDG graphics, it goes back to two tools that Elsevier has. One is called Scopus, which is the citations database. There's over 1 billion references in Scopus from 5,000 plus publishers, including Elsevier. And what my colleagues have been able to do, working with a whole range of experts in sustainability, is to index the content of Scopus to the SDGs so that we can run specific search queries. And that is the kind of base data that's being used. We pour that into an analytical tool, which we have, which is called SciVal, and that's helping us to produce this data for these SDG graphics. I also wanted to highlight that at Risk in Business Analytics, one of those business-to-business companies is called ProAgrica, and we work with farmers and others in agriculture to use smart data connectivity and digital tools to drive sustainability and to improve biodiversity. At LexisNexis Legal and Professional, another example is the Rule of Law Impact Tracker, again, which you can find on the RELX SDG Resource Center. And what we wanted to try and do there is to visualize how certain metrics increase or decrease when you add more rule of law. So corruption decreases when you add more rule of law into your society, and life expectancy increases. So that is based on data. And Reed Exhibitions World Future Energy Summit, we're bringing knowledge together because we have buyers and sellers who are showcasing innovative technology, much of it running on data. And we know that in the 2019 iteration of the show, and it was able to take place in 2020 in January this year in Abu Dhabi, but last year we know that there was some $10 billion worth of sustainable energy projects. That's all great. But I just want to highlight that it's partnerships that have made those things possible. So, and of course, partnerships is one of the critical SDGs, SDG 17. And what I feel is so important about the SDGs is how interconnected. You pretty much can't have one without having all 17, and they're all overlaid one on top of each other. So experts are the ones that have helped us, as I mentioned, to develop those search queries in Scopus. Farmers have shared their data through ProAgrica. The partners behind the Rule of Law Impact Tracker include the World Justice Project, and it's some 30,000 exhibitors and attendees that make World Future Energy Summit, just one of 500 shows of Reed Exhibitions, a vibrant, sustainable energy marketplace.
That is fantastic, and I cannot agree more with you on the interconnectedness on the SDGs. And I will come back to you with another question on the partnerships. But before that, I would like to ask a question about Reed Exhibitions, one of the leaders in the world in regards to the exhibitions. How do you see and evaluate the CSR activities in the events arm of RELX, and what kind of activities do you do? Because in the exhibitions world, CSR is not something that we come across quite often.
So I think it's twofold. The most obvious way is to think about the sustainability of the shows. If you are building up stands and you need to take them down, what can we do to make that more sustainable? How can we engage with others in our sector on non-price competitive engagement to make the industry more sustainable overall? So UFI is one of the agencies that looks at bringing the different partners together to look at issues like this. And so That's been very useful to see the work that they're engaging in. So we've actually named an individual at REIT Exhibitions to be tasked with increasing the sustainability of the shows. And he's reporting to one of my esteemed colleagues, Hervé Sedki, who is the president of REIT Exhibitions for the Americas, which includes the US and LATAM. And Hervé and I are speaking on a regular basis about these kinds of issues. And one of the things that we talk about is, yes, it's about the sustainability of the shows, but it's also about the issues that the show represents. So if we look at a high-profile show that we're very proud of, World Travel Market, which in normal pre-COVID times brings people together in the tourism industry, we've held different events as part of the content offerings of the show. So you can wander the show floor and meet different buyers and sellers. And by the way, we are going to be introducing virtual shows as well from 2021, which will replicate the experience of walking a show floor, which will be very exciting. While we also hope that we can eventually have more of our shows running, because if you are traveling around as someone that has something to sell, for example, within the tourism industry, that's a lot of carbon that you're using up. But if you can come to a show that's running over 4 days and write all your business in one go, it's far more efficient, and it also decreases your carbon budget. So I think there's still a place for face-to-face. And while this is a really important medium and connects the world, at some level, there's still no substitute for engaging with people on a face-to-face basis from time to time. But one of the things that Hervé and I talk about is the content part of it. So at World Travel Market, we know, for example, that there are issues around responsible tourism, avoiding over-tourism, issues around, for example, orphanage tourism, which is just wrong and has to stop. And in fact, one of our global fundraising partners, coming back around to philanthropy, is Hope and Homes for Children. We've been able to connect them up with World Travel Market, and they have a lot of expertise in this space. We've participated in dialogue, for example, in the House of Lords around avoiding orphanage tourism. But there's other kind of human rights issues around shows. So it's kind of getting at the heart of, if we have this convening power to bring different stakeholders together, how can we get at the heart of what that show is engaged with? And maybe just one more example that I know Hervé is talking about with me from time to time is a small show that ran in the States last year called Functional Fabrics. And they were able to reduce single-use plastic and reuse something as simple as carpets and to look at reusing stands to just make that more sustainable. And what we've been talking about for future iterations of the show, can we also, with the content part of it, look at things like fast fashion? You know, how can that industry become more sustainable? So I think it's both of those parts of the making the show itself more sustainable, but also looking at what that show is all about and what are the issues for that industry.
That is just fantastic, and I think it will lead the industry quite well in regards to the partnerships you're setting up and the content you will be leading. As we discussed about partnerships, and you gave an example, as World Humanitarian Forum, one of our main focus is public and private partnerships, really, for which we also published a report based on one of our previous webinars we held with MasterCard, Vodafone, Unilever, and UN Reboot Accelerator. In this webinar, one of our speakers stated that business cannot thrive in a failing world, highlighting the need for business to support the SDGs. In our report, we stated that there are specific skills and capabilities that businesses can use to benefit partnerships. How has RELX have been supporting public and private partnerships? You gave one example, but it would be really interesting to know more. And also, what do you see as the benefits of collaborating with the UN, governments, and NGOs?
Yes, well, it's absolutely critical. There's so many good things that come out of the engagement with NGOs and with the United Nations. So for us, we are signatory of the United Nations Global Compact. It celebrates 20 years in a year that also celebrates the 75th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations. And we have to be aware of the challenges and some of the shortcomings of international institutions. They are not perfect, but we have to work from within to improve them, and they are the best that we have. When we bring different nations together, when we bring business, civil society together, it's stronger because you're hearing different voices. You're not functioning in an echo chamber. And I would say that for us, the Global Compact has been absolutely critical. It's been a kind of moral compass for us. There are 10 principles related to human rights, labor, environment, anti-bribery. And once we found out about that, we were not a first signatory, but an early one. And it probably, I think it goes back to 2003 that we signed up. And we have embedded the 10 principles in our code of conduct. We've embedded it in our supplier code. And for us, if we put our name to something, we also really want to be involved. We're part of a few of their action platforms to support the SDGs. So for example, they have one on SDG 8, decent work and economic growth. And the benefits are multiple because we can learn from our peers. We can learn from the best practice that the UN has to share with us. And there's also a kind of halo effect that we get from our engagement because we are proud of saying that we are engaged in this way, for example, with the United Nations Global Compact or with other initiatives that we participate in with other agencies of the UN. So an example would be the World Health Organization and the Research for Life partnership. We have been a partner of Research for Life for many, many years. There are over 2 million article downloads that happened last year through Science Direct, which we make available at either free or low cost to researchers in low-income countries that would not be able to afford that content otherwise. So it often enables us to engage in a way that is more trusted with different partners and is able to connect us with people on the ground who need the support, again, in a way that we don't have that expertise, but it happens from within those partnerships. So I think that's really important. And if we've been talking about the RELX SDG Resource Center, we have over now today thousands of people who visit the Resource Center every month. And while the majority of that content is from across RELX, it also is from partners, including from within the UN system. So UN Global Compact, UN Environment Program, UN Development Program. We have new partnerships that we're really excited about this year, like with Global Citizen, which mobilizes people, including young people around the world, to make a difference for global poverty, but also on the SDGs. And that just brings new people that we wouldn't have met otherwise to the door of the Resource Center, and that's what we want. We want more people to visit. And it's a sustainable model for us. At the end of the day, we're a business. We need to be meeting the expectation of all our stakeholders, including our shareholders. But I don't really believe that we have to focus exclusively on one to the exclusion of others. You know, just like we talked about the SDGs being a kind of multi-layered agenda, we have to please all our stakeholders. It's not easy, but we need to strive to do that.
I'm sure it's not an easy job. I would like to bring up another initiative you have, which is RELX Environmental Challenge 2020, which aims to support innovative solutions to improve wash systems. SDG 6 on wash is a pivotal SDG, and like naturally many other SDGs is intertwined with gender equality and education, among many others. We discussed about the interconnectedness of SDGs. This year's winner was a mobile dewatering vehicle by Quebex, a Lebanese social enterprise. The RELX challenge has been going on for 10 years now, as far as I'm aware. Can you tell a little bit more of the overall impact of this program and how this ties into your corporate responsibility program?
Yes, well, when we decided to do something, we don't do a lot that is under the RELX banner, because the strength of our business, there's the corporate center strength, but the heart of our business are the four parts that we have that I described to you: Elsevier, Risk and Business Analytics, LexisNexis Legal and Professional, and Read Exhibitions. So we, but we thought that there's something about that convening power from the center that we might be able to do something that could address an environmental challenge in a humble way, but that we might see impact over a period of time. There are other companies that have bigger prizes for environmental goodness, and including in water. But we thought, well, there's some things that we could do that would really make this special. We can obviously have a $50,000 first prize and a $25,000 second prize. And of course, when you add up the 10 years, that's over, because we had some years where we had a third prize as well, given by a partner. But it's, you know, $750,000 worth of support for WASH, but to any individual, and I think that's also something unique, because it's also, we didn't mind if it was just an individual that had a good idea. So we have university researchers, small social enterprises, businesses that have all won the challenge. But we thought that we could look for innovative projects, have some good criteria, like projects have to be scalable, they have to have local engagement, local expertise. It cannot just be the West bringing the ideas. That, you know, we really need to, if these are going to be sustainable projects, that they have to be those that have local expertise, local knowledge to sustain them over the longer term. So that's been, that was something that was quite important to us. But that we should also sweeten the deal by making access to content. So since the beginning, we've made made relevant content available through Science Direct to our winners, to our shortlisted winners. And that's something that only we can provide. So we know, for example, that our share of citations in energy and fuels is the largest in the world. So that's a kind of measure of quality. So we need to be able to make this content available to those that are trying to work in water and sanitation. We can also use our platforms to highlight the good work that they're doing. So not just the ones that you would think of through a website, but also through water research, for example. And one of our judges that has been with us from the beginning is one of the world's experts in water, Mark van Moostraat, who is a winner of the Stockholm Water Prize. And you know, he evaluates the shortlist alongside other judges like Dr. Lewis Collins. He's a new judge that joined us this year. He's also from the family, as it were, with Cell Press, and he's the editor of something called One Earth, but also Valerie Lobby of a social enterprise in Ghana who's at the forefront of improving sanitation. So we can profile our winners in water research. Also, our second prize winner is going to be featured in One Earth. Again, those are things that only we can do. But when we started, we just thought water didn't get enough of the attention. Obviously, the most critical problem facing humanity is not COVID-19, although that is had a devastating effect on lives and people everywhere, and also on economies, but it's really climate change. And in fact, we can see how pressure on climate has exasperated issues that may have impacted COVID-19. For example, the loss of biodiversity and the pressure on habitats. But we thought that water would be something good to focus on. And what we didn't know that we were doing at the beginning, but we can see now with hindsight, is really supporting entrepreneurs. So we're so proud of the work that they've done. And in fact, to celebrate the 10th anniversary, we launched a collaboration prize. And we have 3 former winners that have come together to work on some projects, including one in Colombia, which will take the best knowledge on sanitation and also water on a branch of this collaboration project that will be focused on Africa, and just making sure that our alumni network know of each other, that they can reach out to one another, and that we're in it for the long term.
That's fantastic. It's a great initiative. Congratulations, first of all. We are always supporting innovative ideas and innovations in the industry, and having something specific to WASH, it is, I think, really appealing and right to the point. Congratulations for this program. You are also a board member of KiMoon Center for Global Citizen. Can you tell us a bit more about your work there and how RELX is supporting the center's works?
Well, I've used pride and proud a lot in our conversation today, but it's really humbling to work alongside the father of the SDGs, Ban Ki-moon, but also other great leaders like the co-founder, President Heinz Fischer, former president of Austria. We have a fantastic CEO in Monica Frohler, and colleagues like Global Citizen, Mick Sheldrick, Irina Bokova, who was the first woman to head up UNESCO, and Jean Todt of the Fédération Internationale Automobile. So lots of great people who are all passionate about the importance of global citizenship education, particularly for women and for young people. So this is really a passion of the former Secretary General, and to use his gravitas. The world needs role models. We need leaders who can help to chart a path, who say the things that need to be said. And we are finding lots of different ways to work with different partners. So for example, we at RELX are supporting Ban Ki-moon Scholars Program. This year we have lots of innovative projects with young people from Africa who are working to advance the SDGs. And so we were able to feature some of them. Again, trying to use our convening powers. When we launched the SDG Resource Center in 2017, we held our first SDG Inspiration Day. And this most recent one we did in June. We were going to be meeting in Malaysia face-to-face, but we switched to an online format. And it was really great. We were worried about how it could work, but the platform was really effective because we got people from all over the world. We had about 400 people join us for some part of the day. And we had a lot of great inspiration, including from the Ban Ki-moon Center scholars, but also people like Graça Machel, who with Ban Ki-moon is a member of the elders, and Graça was co-founder with her late husband, Nelson Mandela. So I think it's trying to find where we can add value through the Ban Ki-moon Center. to advance projects, to work with states to bring them on board. So the government of Austria, the government of South Korea, the government of Kuwait are supporting the center. So how can we be one more force for good in the world? I think you can't have too many.
Yeah, exactly. And I had the pleasure to work with Mr. Ban Ki-moon personally back in the WHS, which is World Humanitarian Summit, back in 2016. And as World Humanitarian Forum, we are really proud to be carrying the legacy back from those dates. And it's a great pleasure, really, to see how you're supporting Ban Ki-moon Center. I also would like to ask you a very generic question after everything we have discussed. How do you see the future of CSR, and what do you think about the impact of COVID-19 on CSR activities? Can we speak about the rise of philanthropy and corporate social responsibility?
Well, I'm encouraged by the fact that a number of our investors, so like BlackRock, which is a major investor in RELX, have said this year, since the depth and reach of COVID-19 became apparent, that they were not taking their eyes off the importance of ESG criteria as a way of assessing companies. So environmental, social, and governance criteria being a key way of looking at the long-term health of a business. I think that we recognize now that, and there have been many incidents of companies that have not balanced pursuit of profit with having a positive impact on society, that have not been able to stay the course in terms of being a business that's there, for the long term, or which has, had pressure or, had impact on their share price because of not being able to balance, or not realizing the need to balance the pursuit of profit with having a positive impact on stakeholders. So I think it's an enlightened view of companies, and whether you're going to be investing just for the short term, or you're going to be investing for the long term, and that you are going to be prioritizing companies that are showing that they understand their risks, they're minimizing those risks, and they're also working to maximize their opportunities. And again, I come back to something that I said before, where it just is not as simple as saying, shareholders are the only stakeholder that matters. Our employees will not let us do that. Governments are putting increasing focus on having companies act in an ethical way. For example, we are here in, we're UK headquartered business, and there is the Modern Slavery Act, and we have to produce our Modern Slavery Act system. We need to be making statements about what we were trying to achieve and how we performed against those objectives in that area of avoiding human trafficking and modern slavery in our operations. So government is also expecting that of us, and others, young people. It is a war for talent. Actually, as you mentioned, data is absolutely prime for us at RELX. Data and analytics is at the heart of what we do. So we want, in our, we employ over 8,000 technologists. We want the best and brightest young men and women, or men and women of any age, to come and work for us, as opposed to going to other businesses that they could choose to work for. And when we talk about corporate responsibility, that's really important, because we know that they could go and own a tiny few millimeters of a homepage of a major international technology brand, or they can come and help doctors save lives through Elsevier, or they can help to fight fraud at Risk Solutions, or they can help judges and lawyers make better decisions by coming to work for LexisNexis Legal and Professional, or to improve the way markets function through READ exhibitions. So we really believe that this is not just something that is for the here and now, and that when the difficult times hit, and I was talking actually to a colleague of mine who works for a major European bank, and he was saying to me back in February, he said, well, he was a little bit skeptical about ESG. So what we really need is a good global crisis to test it. Well, we have that now, and we can see with the continued focus by stakeholders on holding companies to account, to help them to be to do the best they can, to not only for their shareholders but for others in society.
Marcia, we cannot thank you enough for this amazing conversation. It has been really great to discuss with you on too many matters. Thank you for your time, and I would like to address my last question to you. What is your message today to the audience?
Oh, well, just to keep going, and to think of, there are many challenges in the world, and we need to be working to address them. But there's always hope, and I think there's for whatever place we start from, we can always be the best version of ourselves, and for those of us that work in business, we can always help our organizations. There's always an opportunity to do that, and there's inspiration comes from so many places if we look around and find it. And I just want to put a shout out to one partner that I should have mentioned when we were talking about good partners. Indeed, looking again for inspiration. My colleague, Ambassador Amanda Ellis, is one of the co-founders of the We Empower SDG Challenge, and RELX is a disseminating partner. This is recognizing women entrepreneurs doing something to advance the SDGs in different parts of the world. And so, that's where we can get our inspiration from, women like that, and different projects. There are so many out there that show that there's more good, I think, in the world than there is, of other things. We just have to work to maximize that.
Great, thank you so much. And as I said, thank you for your time today.
It's a pleasure.